Got it. Alrighty. I don't know why it's still doing that. Okay. All right, just do it from there. All right. So good evening. The purpose of this presentation is to give you an overview of how to vote for candidates running for a seat on the citywide and education councils. How you vote play a part in our children's education and what your participation is important to the 2023 CEC elections. By the time we reach the end of our presentation, our goal is that you have the information you need to vote. After the presentation, I'll take questions. You can put them in the chat or we'll just take it off the floor. You can just raise your virtual hand. If you have any issues with your NICSA, we can have a member of the team, which will probably be myself, assigned to assist you. So last year, if you look at the screen, the law had changed to make community education councils more inclusive. Now, there's District 75 parents who will sit and actually get to vote for a representative to the CEC where their children or students program is located, regardless of where they may live. For example, if you live in District 12 and your child attends a District 75 program in District 16, you are eligible to vote for the District 16, District 75 seat. District 75 parents are also eligible to cast their vote for the citywide council, District 75 and citywide councils on special education ballots. So I won't go over what's on the screen, but if you can see, it's a big thing, right? That the 32 councils will now have a member from District 75 on the council, right? The additional parent member ensures representation that's reflective of all the diversities of your communities. Candidates for the District 75 seat will be elected by the parents of District 75 students to serve on these community education councils. So a lot of times you hear the same questions. What do education councils have to do with me? So education councils help improve our schools, right? They strengthen the school communities and promote student achievement to make our public schools the best they can be. Parents have a powerful voice, as you do know, CEC, right? They have a powerful voice and they promote student achievements to make our public schools the best as they can be, like I stated. They shape the policies. And once again, they select the best candidates for your district. So who elects the education council members? In 2019, the law around education councils was changed to open voting to all parents of New York City public school students. New York City Schools account, also known as the NICSA, or My Student, are where parents can view important information about all their students in one place. Once logged into your account, the NICSA will tell you the programs your children are enrolled in and what councils they are eligible to vote on. Mark your calendars because April 21st, which was last Friday, voting started and it's going to go through until May 9th. If you have, or if you need a NICSA account, we'll definitely help you. Have your phones ready and we will make sure you can register. Make sure you have your children's OSS number and a creation code from your child's parent coordinator. And also go to this link, which you can see, schoolsaccount.nyc, right? So once your child or children is linked to your NICSA account, the system will point you to the council races you are eligible to vote in. Every parent will have the opportunity to vote. Many families will vote for more than one council. So as you notice here, you can see where we have the 32 education councils for New York City. Move this out of the way, sorry. Oh, that's weird, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to work through this piece that's blocking me, yeah. There we go. So if you notice the 32 community education councils, which represent students from K to 8 across the 5 boroughs for each district, right? They have one council. And on the other side, we have the city-wide education councils, which represents the interests of the 4 special student populations across the 5 boroughs. So we have here, and for others who are not familiar with the CEC or not on CECs, they may not remember or know the acronyms. So CCHS, high school students, the CCELL, the English language learners, the CCSE, which is the special education students, and the CC District 75, which is the District 75 piece. Okay. For some reason, my screen isn't doing what this needs to be doing. Yeah.
You have a lot more of this presentation. We thought it was only going to be 5 minutes. So
so we're going to just work through it. So just on this screen, it tells you about the composition. I'm going to work through it. Okay. I just wanted everyone to check on this very important part.
We can't hear you.
Yeah. You still can't hear me? My mute is off. Can you hear me?
Yes.
How about now?
Yeah.
How about now? Okay, I just want to share that eligibility is driven by the student, right? If you notice on this screen, it shows here Nia, which her daughter is in the 4th grade, and she has all these different programs that she's eligible to vote and cast ballot for, right? So she has a child, and she also has 2 actually, with the child, which is a female and a male, right? It shows it on the screen, right? So District 75C for CEC 24, she will get 3 votes. For the District 75, she will get 3 more votes. And for the other piece, she'll also get 3 more votes. And for her child that's in the Bronx High School, she'll get 3 votes. So I wanted you to pay attention to this piece because people try to figure out how many ballots they can cast. Do know it, again, it's student driven and it depends on the amount of services, I should say, programs that your child is in. And on the other side, you see Pablo, he only has 1 son, but Pablo's son is in 2 different programs. So he will be able to get 6 votes. Right? So I'm just gonna ask by the show of hands, let everyone know about the NICSA account. Make sure that their accounts are up and running and active because this is where parents will be able to vote. Right? This is where you also see your student grades, their report cards, attendance history, and much more. Go to schoolsaccount.nyc. When you go into that account, you'll see the landing page that tells you to sign in. You can check to make sure that you have your language that you speak in. It does that. Once you go in, you choose your language successfully. You got it. You have to sign out, sign back in. So it'll show within the language you're speaking. This is where you sign in with your password. And you'll get to the point where it says vote for CCEC. Make sure you see that button to click on. That's where you will vote. Right? So I'm running through it, right? So then you'll see the page where it shows the list of candidates, right? You also see and choose who the candidates are that you want to choose. Do know you can only choose or vote, right, up to 3 candidates. You can't go over more than 1. Before you hit enter, make sure and review that this is the choices that you are choosing to make, because once you submit it, you cannot go backwards. When you're completed, right, you will receive a thank you for voting screen that will give you a confirmation number. You will also receive an e-ballot, right, at the end. And it's actually the receipt that you voted. Again, please encourage families, please encourage parents, let them know why it's important for them to vote. Please take note that if you want to know more about your candidates, you can find their profiles on the CEC website, also the DOE website at schools.nyc.gov. You can view forum archives for whatever districts or programs your children or child is in on the Community Education Council Learn DOE. So we're going to come to a close, right? If you have any questions, you can contact Elections 2023 at schools.nyc.gov and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at NYC Schools, right? schools.nyc.gov/elections 2023. And please take my email. I am Nicole Job, NJOB2 at schools.nyc.gov. And I'll bring it to a close. If there's any questions, I can take it. You can send it if it's, too much time. But I wanted to just encourage everyone here to vote, to make sure that your student account is active, and you share with other parents, because it's important to get out the vote and have your voices be heard, because we always encourage and need strong leadership on our council, like for instance, CEC 15. And that's about it. Were there any questions in the chat?
There are no questions in the chat, and
Okay.
thank you so much for your time. What we did
I
do is
appreciate
we
it.
dropped a number of links to NICSA and the candidate
Awesome.
forums and elections information. So if people have questions about that, they have the access to the DOE websites. And Nicole, thank you so much. Thank you for your service as a CEC member as well.
Thank you so much, guys. You have a great evening. Good luck to everyone and anyone who's running. Take care. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So again, welcome everybody to the CEC 15 calendar meeting. It is April 25th, and I am going to call this meeting to order at 6:52. We're going to do a quick roll call, and then I am going to hand the floor over to Superintendent Alvarez because we are running behind schedule. So I will call roll. We have a number of members absent tonight, unfortunately, but it is what it is. So I'm Camille Casaretti. I'm the president of CEC 15. Council member Antonia Ferraro. Present. Is here with us tonight. Council member Tia Shelsted had a work-related absence. Council member Lou also scheduling conflict. Council member Nana Poku Agyakum also is having a work conflict. Alfred D. Ingenis, also a work conflict. Joseph Alexander, same thing. Yvonne Banda, our borough president appointee, is here with us today. Hello, Yvonne. Thank you for being here. And Nancy Randall is also absent for work-related issues. And Vanessa Gonzalez Uyeko is here today. Thank you. And Nakia Muhasa Brown is absent as well. So without further ado, I will hand the floor over to Superintendent Alvarez. So we're jumping a little bit on the agenda, but I just want to make sure that everybody is able to get all of these presentations because they're going to be extensive. So we'll jump to the president's report later in the meeting. Superintendent Alvarez.
Thank you, President Casaretti. Just getting started, if we can move to the next slide. We're going to talk a little bit about the attendance and best practices that we're seeing in our schools and then uptake in our attendance. DCEP progress goals, for those of you who don't know what that is, that's the District Comprehensive Educational Plan. We're going to talk a little bit about the TSI, CSI updates, some minor updates around the diversity plan, some upcoming events, and then a little bit about Summer Rising. So next slide. Next. Just want to celebrate and go ahead.
The presentation is not yet. Just making sure that everybody.
Try to have a see the next one. Yeah, I'm gonna start. So just so that for saving time, we want to celebrate and honor two things in the month of May. Obviously several things, but mainly understanding that Happy National Teachers Day is on May 9th, celebrating our teachers who support our children across our district, but also a happy Mother's Day to all mothers on May 14th in the month of May. So I just want to make sure we pointed that out. And with that being said, on the next slide, I'd like to talk about celebrating Earth Day, which we did this month, Eid, which we did on Friday, Asian American Pacific Islander month, and Jewish American Heritage Month as well. And so we wanted to pay homage to all those things. Next slide. Next slide. So this graph here is what we notice. The top line where it says 92.7% is where we are as a district. If you look at February, we were at 92.1. We moved up to 92.7. Recently, in the month of April, which ends at the end of this week, right now we'll probably be at 93.1. So that's just showing that we're having an uptake in our attendance because of the work that we've been doing across our schools to not only reduce chronic absenteeism, but also to reduce the students that are at risk. So right now, at risk, we have 9.9% of our students, where last month I reported to you, we had 22%. So that's a huge reduction in the at-risk students for attendance. And then on the opposite side, we were at about 11 to 12% chronic absenteeism. We are now at 15.5. Historically, this district has averaged about 20 to 21% of students chronically absent. So we're doing everything to remain below that, especially with all the things that are going on this month. So I just wanted to share that. Next slide. As a result, we moved from 6th place in terms of attendance rate to 5th place. These are the top 15 schools with year-to-date attendance. We're now ranked number 5. A month ago, we were ranked number 6, and we were trailing number 6 for a while, but we outdid District 30 with some work with the school leaders who've been addressing attendance across our district. Next slide. So some of the things that causes the spring slump, culminating events like proms, graduations, trips that people are taking, preparing for next year, post-testing mindsets. Once the testing is over, these things cause people to think, oh, I need to take the day off. Early vacations where people are taking extended and longer vacations, and winding down work with school partners like end of programs or clubs that are being offered. So we've been working on addressing this, and I just wanted to share 2 schools that have been addressing this in a very different way, uniquely in their schools, that have bringing an uptick in their attendance in positive numbers. Go ahead, next slide. I'm going to skip this slide and go to the next one. PS 39, Principal Sarah Panage, who's been working on a month-long list. She has this thing called Attend Dance Day, where she has parties during recess for children who are improving their attendance, and a whole day of different things to keep students in school before break and after break. And I'm proud to say that prior to the month of April, every vacation we've had, we've seen a decline in attendance by 10% before and after the February break, before and after the winter break, before and after the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. And in this month, I'm happy to say that we were only down by about 2% before the vacation and about 2% after the vacation. A lot of that is the work that schools are doing to keep students in school during those times and conversations they're having with parents. So I want to thank the parents for working with the schools and ensuring that their kids are in school during those days, but also the school leaders who are doing amazing things to try to keep their kids in school. Another school we wanted to point out was PS 94, which is on the next slide. And sorry, 29. I love this. So Principal Rebecca Fagan, she actually does these activities in the morning when kids come in as like competition activities. So if you see the little girl, she's doing her hula hoop, or they have sack races, different activities, fun before school activities. So the kids want to get up early in the morning and get to school and do these fun activities before they start their day, almost like Move to Improve, but before they actually walk in the doors. And so I just thought it was a really unique way to get kids to wanting to come to school. Then the next slide is PS 94, where they've been doing a lot of things. Students that are at risk, Principal Gonzalez meets with those students every single morning as they're coming into the door, which has been a one-to-one relationship with the school leader that's been getting kids to want to come because they get to have that special time with the principal. She has areas in the building where kids have restful time, peaceful time. Each school, each member in the community is a success mentor to individual students that they're monitoring and watching in their school community. And she still does improvement certificates as well as perfect attendance certificates. It can be perfect attendance for a week. It can be a perfect attendance for the month. It could be a perfect attendance for several months. It's just an incentive to get kids to thinking about wanting to work towards something from wherever they are. Next slide. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the DCEP in alignment to the chancellor's priorities. I shared this with DLT. You're getting a abbreviated version of this. Next slide. There you go. All students learn to read well in our district. We're working with providers and training teachers to enhance their tier 1 foundational skills, such as Haggerty, phonemic awareness, foundations in some cases in our K-2 classrooms across many of our schools. We're using data to inform instruction. So we're looking at the universal screener data and grouping students by skill and adjusting instruction accordingly in the tier 1 core instruction, which is where students are in the classroom with the teachers so that they're not being pulled out for the additional services, but actually they're receiving them in the class. And implementing a lot of small group instruction. We've been leveraging the INSEP grant that we've had with funds to implement tier 2 foundational reading instruction for select schools. And we're doing inquiry cycle case studies between screener benchmarks to adjust instruction and ensure progress for all. So the 2 pictures there, you see 295, where they were working with Teaching Matters with the INSEP grant. At 136, they have strategic reading periods. They're called SRP periods, where there are specific skills that are necessary for kids to be able to move on, where there's time for them to do it. And it's not pulled away from instructional time, where we often see kids being pulled out of a class. They're losing their instructional time, and then they're coming back with some learning loss, even though they've gained in another particular area. Next slide. Sorry, I'm going really fast. Next slide. So all students are physically and emotionally safe is the second goal. We've established partnerships with the Ackerman Institute for Families, NYU Nest, Art Therapy Project, which started this week, and History Unerased to support in professional development district-wide. We've also made sure that all guidance counselors and social workers have had access to learning plan trainings, offered different modalities such as play therapy, art therapy, and topics including LGBTQ, ASD, and others to support with at-risk counseling. This year, I invested a lot of funds that we had from the INSEP grant into our guidance counselors and social workers so that they had outside training to support their already trained work that they're doing, but to enhance their abilities to go even further with our students. And just so that you know, we've also are applying for another grant, which will be able to bring 2 mental health clinics into 2 of our schools that are in most need to support, but they would be supporting across the district, because we're hoping to offer some teletherapy in the work around supporting students with psychiatrists and other work, because we know that we don't have access to it easily, and our local hospitals take months to get an appointment. We've been working with NYU Langone to finalize the grant, which is going in, I think, at the end of this week. Art therapy sessions, as I said, were offered to high need schools. We also have at PS 958, you all know that as Emily Shapiro's school. She is the new principal of our school. That's a more inclusive school. That school has a BCBA coach, which is a behavioral therapist support work. That same behavioral therapist has been offering professional development for our guidance counselors, as well as our social workers across the district, to train them in the practices that she embeds at 958. So we're expanding the resources by creating sustainability and building capacity. Counseling specific resources are provided to all school counselors and social workers for high quality student care. And as you know, in my superintendent town halls, which have been focusing on what the community is asking for in terms of well-being for students. I know CEC has brought up the drug prevention. In other areas and forums, we've heard about LGBTQ inclusivity. And so as you've been seeing in our town halls, we've been trying to address what the community has been asking us to address and moving that work forward. Next slide. All students graduate college and career ready and have a strong plan and pathway to economic security. We have 2 high schools in our district, but this is in partnership with all the other high school superintendents. And so we have made sure that teachers are revising their curricula to ensure skills and content are aligned to priority skill criteria and content areas. We have a diploma program teachers, which are for grades 11 and 12, where they review and analyze the historical IB, DP, which is dual language program or international baccalaureate program, college and career preparatory curriculum. K-12 school students and family resources in multiple languages and targeted high school, college and career advising pilot, which is posted at our 2 high schools. College and career guidance are meet with students in grades 11 and 12 to develop individualized college match programs. And using those college match programs, they actually set up the tours for those students to be able to go visit those particular college campuses, whether it be virtually or in person. We've moved the work in middle school. Not only do we have college and career counseling and advisory programs, it's also funded. So that schools are not utilizing their additional fundings for that, but there is funding specifically for that. I would argue that we've even gone further in K-5 and connecting students, as you saw me in previous months, as early as kindergarten, going on partnership trips with other students to get exposed to why they're collecting this scholarship money from the New York City RISE program to how this is going to be utilized when they're actually pretty much adults at that point. We have the acceleration of post-secondary success with early college credits and credentials of value. And grades 9 to 12 students participate in college, CUNY, SUNY, and private courses and tours based on college and career plans and college match, which is kind of what I shared earlier. We've been trying to build high-quality college and career pathway programs with meaningful work experiences from internships and apprenticeships. And I'm working towards bringing some other CTE programs within our school communities as early as middle school. So that's something I'm going to be looking into even further to how we create these CTE programs where students are getting credits early on, so that when they're applying for high school, they're applying for these CTE programs where they have access. A lot of people misunderstand the CTE schools. CTE schools require you to get an actual high school diploma. They have to get a Regents diploma. But in addition to that Regents diploma, they also get certifications. And so the students and their families can make choices as to whether or not they go to college or do they go to career ready, where many of those students will have license to be plumbers, HVAC engineers, and they'd be able to go straight into the local unions, so that straight to the workforce, making decent money. And many of them do that while also going to work, going to school full-time or part-time in the evenings. So these are other pathways for students to get. And I know that there's a misunderstanding of CTE programs. I actually think there's a huge value in them. And, you know, had I thought differently at one point, maybe I would have been one, because paying $200 to fix a light bulb these days, I mean, they make very good money to support. And I think it's a great way for students to be able to have access to different things. Next slide. All students have a high quality academic experience. We have many schools that are participating in metamorphosis coaching, and 16 of our schools actually, to enhance tier 1 instruction. What they're doing is developing content from a conceptual understanding, so that they understand why they're multiplying. Why are we multiplying 8 times 8, rather than just knowing that 8 times 8 is 64, right? We have schools that are strategically planning with professional development and coaching for 14 schools in District 15 around math with our instructional specialist. She's been working with 14 schools with the highest need. Oh, I got to slow down again. Okay. With the highest need. I apologize. I just, you know, it's a bad tendency. So I'll slow down. Let me give a minute. Minito, I'm so sorry. Okay. We've also been developing big ideas in math professional learning series. We've had 10 sessions with about 126 teachers participating in PD across the district. Where we're seeing the information, we've been doing classroom observations. Both Deputy Superintendent Lanzalato, myself, as well as the instructional leads across our district have been looking at how classrooms have been implementing centers and small group instruction in tier 1 that incorporate really concrete manipulatives and opportunities to make really a better understanding of mathematical concepts with abstract ideas. And in the next slide, oh, I took that out. But in the next slide, you would have seen images of students actually working with the mathematics to understand the conceptual understanding of it versus just a piece of paper that has 20 examples to have to solve the same 20 examples just with different numbers. But here you have redesigning the system to be more inclusive and responsive. One of the things that I said when I first came on board as superintendent in your district was that we were going to be more inclusive of all the other languages that we speak within our district. And I'm proud to say that every single month, we have all of our CEC PowerPoints, all of our town hall PowerPoints translated into the 4 major languages of Bangla, Mandarin, Spanish, and obviously English. And we've been providing that every single month. All of our workshops have had translation. We will continue to do that work because if we're a diverse district, then we're going to respect and honor and celebrate the diversity we have. And families are welcome to always speak in their native language first, and we can be translated into English, and we'll continue to do that work. So we're excited about that. Next slide. Oh, I also want to mention, you could stay there, but I also want to mention that even the diversity plan, WXY, we've been working with WXY to ensure that the report that's finalized, and we'll talk about that later, will be finalized in all those same languages as well, so that families can read in whichever language is most accessible to them. CSI and TSI school updates. These were state changes. I want to go into the ESA designation updates. We added a new school as a CSI school, which is middle school 136. We kept 15, even though they've demonstrated, they met the cutoff, they haven't demonstrated enough growth from the original data. I'm going to stop there for a second. And I'm going to stop there for a second because this past year, the state requested a waiver from the federal government to not give a designation for schools in this last year because we were still in an imbalance of the data. Unfortunately, the federal government said absolutely not. In order to receive funding, you have to do this. So every state was required to actually designate schools that get federal funding. New York State this year decided not to use all of the components that they use to determine a CSI, TSI, or an ATSI school. So what they did is instead of using growth and proficiency, chronic absenteeism, and NYSESLAT scores, they decided just to use proficiency and use the bottom 5% of the state. And that's how the schools were designated for this year and this year only. There's a new metrics that will be coming out. There is comments. I know the Chancellor of the Regents, Chancellor Young, has talked about this. If anybody's interested, please look up the Board of Regents for New York State and look at what the Chancellor's talking about as it relates to how designations will happen in the future. As a result, GS, which was considered good standing, has now changed into LSI, which is local support and improvement. It's just another way of saying that the schools are in good standing. 2 schools that you see in yellow, 676. We're proud to say that 676 went from a CSI school to a TSI school. So instead of the whole school being looked at, we're now just focusing on students with disabilities in that school. That's an improvement for that school. So we're excited and wanted to celebrate that. We also wanted to celebrate that for 497 because they're remaining a TSI school because the focus is now middle school Black students. Previously, the focus was for both middle school Black students and Latinx students. And Latinx students are now LSI, which means they're in good standing. So they have remained a TSI school because we have to improve our Black students, particularly in middle school, which we're working on. And we see ourselves getting off the list for that school. And then in green, you see 32. PS 32 was a TSI school that's now moved into the designation of LSI, which is another way of saying good standing. So we're really proud of the record that we have in our district. And while you're seeing 2 CSI schools, these are 2 really well-performing, at least well-to-do schools in terms of how they're supporting our students and making them feel overall in the process of how they feel about themselves, because it's not just only academic, it's also about the social and emotional well-being of our students. And collectively at these particular schools, students are feeling safe and feeling nurtured in their school environments. Also to note that PS 15 does have a lot of other special ed programs that are severe special needs that have been flourishing under her leadership, but they are still programs where students really struggle and can be very difficult to meet a certain level as it relates to where they are in terms of proficiency, but there's so much growth there happening. So I just wanted to point that out. Next slide. Diversity plan assessment updates. So really quickly on the next slide, you'll see that we've launched and it's live, and Deputy Superintendent Lanzalato is going to put in the chat where you can actually already complete your survey because it is live. We've worked with CEC members as well as with WXY to create the survey. And they are in the multiple languages as promised. You select which language you choose, and then it'll bring the survey in that particular language. It closes May 31st. We want as many families to participate because the more that participate, the better understanding we have of what we need to do in terms of changing anything as it relates to the diversity plan going forward. We've completed engagement with all district and DOE interviews, all SLTs at the District 15 middle schools, District 15 diversity plan previous working group listening sessions. A data analysis, about 70% of the way we're completed. We're waiting for transportation data, and we're also waiting for the 2022-2023 data sets in summer of 2023. So we expected to present to you the final findings in May, June. We've decided to hold off to the fall because the DOE will not release the 2022-2023 data till the end of the summer because they have to clean it up. They have to go through a lot of vetting processes. And rather than give you half of the information, we held for the fall to give you all of the information so that nothing's hidden. And the academics are also included with this so that there is no question about why and what we're doing around the particular diversity plan that we're focusing on. Listening sessions are still being organized. There's parent and caregiver sessions. There are 4. There are 2 student sessions, 1 teacher session, 1 guidance counselor session, and 1 community-based organization session. In May, principals conferences, the principals conference, we're going to review programs scan to understand any disparities in offerings, programs across our middle schools, and then the report development. We have begun synthesizing engagement to date. We meet every other week, I believe it is. And then we started development on the report design. As I stated to you before, it will be for the first time translated in 4 languages, well, 3 languages and kept in English as well. And we're expecting to release by fall 2023. We're hoping by the end of September, if not early October, the latest, to incorporate 2022, 2023 data, because then we'll have 2 data sets to compare 2021-22 and 22-23 school year data to something rather than not comparing to anything. Next slide. So important events, deadlines, and dates that we have. Next slide. Brooklyn Army Terminal, Wednesday, May 24th is our project-based learning student showcase. Neil Singh, NSING 10 at schools.nyc.gov. If you want to volunteer, if you want to participate, if you want to be a parent volunteer, community volunteer, please sign up. We can use all the help we can as all 39 plus schools will be participating with teachers, students, and we expect the entire community to be there to celebrate school-wide enrichment and project-based learning that the assistant principals have been going throughout for this whole year, including today. We spent 2.5 hours working on that work in developing project-based learning units because we are, as again, we stated, we're a progressive district that's looking towards what the state's going to do with assessments, hopefully in the future, and making them project-based. We're going to be at the forefront of this work because we've already been incorporating this into all of the work that we do. Next slide. We also have District 15 family event. It's Learning Together. It's a parent symposium. In this parent symposium, there's going to be parent and family workshops, and they're going to be translated. So you will have translation there for those families who want to participate who are not English speakers. They can participate. We're going to have student performances. Our children are going to be performing for us throughout the day. Community-based organizations, Share Fair. We're going to have our electeds. I know City Council Member Hanif and Aviles have already RSVP'd. We're looking to create 2 separate rooms for almost like a open mic forum for them to speak to their constituencies about things that are happening in their communities for them to get insight. And then we're going to have box lunches as well as a carnival with some bouncies and a few other activities that we want our families to enjoy. We have NYPD's rock climbing wall that's going to be there, some summer slides. President Casaretti has shared with sharing a bunch of Legos so that we could have a block room for our youngest ones who are 3 and 4-year-olds to be able to participate. Family yoga. NYU is going to be there for dental screening, vision screening, so much more. There's many things that are going to be going on. Goodies and bags and everything else, books and all. This is an event extravaganza for our families to bring our families together from across the district collectively. This is going to be hosted in Sunset Park at Middle School 136, 821. So thank you, Principal Spalding and Principal Bueno for hosting our site. I also want to thank Rob from City Council Member Avila's office, who's helped us get the permit to close the street down so that we have more safety and security for our kids, as we expect this to be a really big event. It's from 9 to 3 on Saturday, June 3rd. Next slide. This is just a little bit more about it. I'm going to skip that, but if you have any questions, C for Route 8. I'm not going to read this for you, but these are the remaining New York State exam dates as they're left. These are the Regents exam dates that are remaining for this particular school year. Please note that the June 19th is Juneteenth, and we will be off. It's a federal holiday. Next slide. Family engagement, CEC, you heard earlier today, April 21st to May 9th. Parents vote via NISCA accounts. We have links on there for you that you can easily click on the PowerPoint so that you have access to the information. We put the candidate forum recordings for you so that you could hear if you missed that. We have the Vote Now flyer so that you can click on in all languages. And we have the candidate profiles for you so that you have access. PA-PTA and SLT elections are by June 30th. PA-PTAs and SLT elections are to be completed by June 30th, as well as Title I for the PAC. Next slide. Middle school offers. Hot off the press, they came out today. You should have received an email with your offer available. You can access them on myschools.nyc. You can access them through your child's school counselor, and worst case scenario, you can access them through the Family Welcome Center. But they were released today. One other thing I want to share with you is CTLE. That's Continuing Teacher and Leader Education. Teachers in New York State are required to get a certain amount of 100 hours within 5 years, every 5 years, to renew their professional licenses. As a district, we were committed to ensuring that we support our teachers so that they don't have to spend extra money to get these credits, but also to have to leave after school and all the other things that might interrupt parents who have after school programs with their children in. And so as a district, as of April 24th, District 15 has had 37 professional learnings listed with CTLE eligibility, which means these teachers are able to take these courses for free with District 15 and get state hours for towards their certification so that they don't have to work after school to do so, or go after school or pay organizations to do so, including their own union. As of the 24th of April, 2023, we have about 1,905 hours of CTLE have been earned. And we're expecting by the end of this particular school year, June 30th, we'll have between 4,100 and 4,500 hours of CTLE earned by teachers across this district, which we're helping minimize the gap that they face. Now, I say teachers, but many teachers, 15 is a very unique place that everybody in the DOE seems to have somebody or knows somebody or a relative somewhere in District 15 that lives in District 15. So we're supporting our also DOE employees who live within 15 to receive the services without having to leave the district to get those services. And so we're proud of that work. Outside of that, I think questions, summarizing. Next slide. These are the sites. High school at Sunset Park is going to be run by Principal Amanda Bueno from District 15. She's going to work in partnership with the site supervisor AP at Sunset Park High School and a site supervisor that she has for the middle school. I don't have their names on there yet. We're supposed to be meeting around the curricula that's supposed to happen for Summer Rising for District 15, as we've been working with the vendor who's going to be meeting with our people tomorrow and sharing with them the curricula that's going to be utilized so that we already have access to what's going to be used in the summer. We've also worked out where we're able to get training sessions for our teachers to start getting trained before June 29th and June 30th, so that they're better prepared to service our students once July 5th comes. And we've already solidified that. We've got approval from Central to do so, and we're working on ensuring that our teachers are trained, our principals are trained, our APs know what they're expecting to look for. We are planning to use NSSI, National Summer School Institute curricula, because it's designed specifically to continue rigor across our district. And we're excited about using that. Next slide. These are just the dates. I'm not going to read this to you. This is something that I've been sharing every month. I just wanted to bring it to you and put it on the PowerPoint slide. Next slide. Same information. Summarizing information, and I'll stop for passing it back to the CEC to any questions, Q&A.
All right. We don't have our parliamentarian here today, so let's look in the chat and see if there's any questions. I'm looking in the chat and let's see, I don't see anybody with their hand raised. Somebody texted a couple.
Sure.
Is the advisory pilot for college and career readiness part of the chancellor's recent announcement contracting with Pearson? If so, which two schools and how can families opt out?
Let me get back. Let me get back to that question. I'll respond to CEC tomorrow on that. I just want to make sure that both our schools are participating or not participating. I'm just letting us know what's happening in District 15. You might also be able to get some of that response from our high school counterpart, Janice Ross's presentation today. They might be able to speak a little bit more to that work.
And the other text is which schools will have the mental health clinics and where is the grant money coming from?
Yep.
Will these be run similarly to the school-based health centers? How many staff people?
It's going to look different. We're not 100% sure on the number of staff. The two sites are as follows. 136/821. There are two sites there. We're putting something in the Sunset Park section. They're also very close to NYU Langone, and there's already partnerships on that side of the district. But we're also putting it on this side of the district for our 6 to 12. We're putting it at 656 with 447. Many of you know some of the tragedies that have happened at 447. There's still a lot of trauma there, and it's impacting students as well. And so what we want to make sure is that we're supporting the community as a whole, but we also have a high school there as well. So we think that the mental health work runs a span of 6 to 12, which would give access to not only two schools in the district, but two schools on opposite ends of the district where there will still be access to other schools to participate. So those would be the locations where these services are. But in talking with NYU Langone, which has been willing to work with us with this, that some of the psychiatrist work and some of the therapy work can still be done through teletherapy, where they will be able to have access and be able to service even more students. We will have some social workers that are going to be hired for this at schools. And I can't tell you the number yet because we're in the process of it. The grant is through Project Aware. So Project Aware is the name of the actual grant that we've been applying for. I want to give a huge shout out to Valeria Osa and Aurelius Hernandez, who have been working hand in hand collectively together to put this together. There's a lot of research and everything else that has to be put together, and the plan has to be thorough. We have already received the grant. This was the conditional for getting the grant finalized and approved. But have already received the grant that I've been talking to you about mental health and trauma. So we've received that aspect of the grant. This is in addition to that. This is $1.8 million over the course of 5 years.
Wow, that's good. Over the course of how many years?
5 years, $1.8 million total. Yeah, that's okay.
Great. We should check the translation lines to see if there's. There is another question in the chat. Let's see.
Under New York State, we're getting the Project
Oh,
Aware
okay.
It's $1.8 million for these services over the course of 5 years.
So we have a question from the chat.
Yeah.
Can you share any information about the planned school on President Street between Sixth and Seventh Avenue?
So that's a great question, and that's gonna lead into, I'm gonna let district planning have conversations about that. I'm not ready to have conversations about that because right now we're in the early phases of it. And what this time is about is sharing what those things are, but then also getting input from the community so that we could do a better process of ensuring that there's joint information in this. And so they're going to share some ideas and thoughts that we've had behind the scenes in terms of conversation, and then get input from the community, obviously CEC members, because you guys help us figure out what schools are going to be and what the zoning and everything else is going to be for our schools, but also in partnership and thinking about what do we want to offer there and why. And so for those sites, the Office of District Planning is going to be discussing a little bit today, and you can probably save that question for me next month, because then we can go into more details about that next month.
All right, so let's go to the interpretation rooms and see if there's any questions there. I won't be able to hear it probably because I'm muted. Interpreters, are there any questions on your lines?
I asked several times their question in Bangla line.
Hi, this is Eddie Lau, Mandarin interpreter. No questions on the Mandarin line. Thank you.
Okay, it appears there's no questions in the interpretation lines.
Anybody in the audience?
Is there anybody in the audience who has a question?
So I guess at this time, I'm going to introduce Office of District Planning. I have Perry and Tori, and I have my famous Donna, who's here to talk on behalf of Office of District Planning.
Good. Thank you so much for the introduction. We're really excited to be with you all tonight to present on some of the new capacities, new buildings coming online in District 15 over the coming years. You can jump to the next slide, please. We wanted to start off with just some quick introductions before we jump in. So my name is Perry Stein. Pleasure to be with you all again this evening. I work on the Brooklyn team at the Office of District Planning, and I work alongside Tori. So I'll pass it to Tori.
Thanks, Perry, and thanks everyone for having us tonight. I'm Tori Fitton. I'm the Director of Planning for Brooklyn North at the Office of District Planning. And I'll pass it to our colleague, Donna.
Hey, everyone. My name is Donna Taylor. I was the founding principal of Brooklyn School of Inquiry, and I have for 6 years been in the Office of School Design at Central, where I work with these lovely two.
Great. Thank you. So, and I see you jump to the next slide and, okay, great. So wanted to start off really quickly with an agenda for what we're going to be discussing tonight. So we did some quick intros, and then we're going to introduce the new buildings that are coming online in District 15 over the coming years, go over some of the process that is entailed in terms of making decisions around what those new buildings will be used for. We're going to go over some data around seat need in District 15, enrollment trends, etc., in the areas surrounding these new buildings. We're going to talk about the school design process, and then we're going to have plenty of time for questions, comments, and feedback around all these matters that we discuss this evening. Next slide, please. Thank you. So the new school buildings, really quickly, to introduce the buildings we're going to be discussing tonight, there's 2 buildings that are expected to open for the 24 to 25 school year. And those are K654, which we're going to be referring to as 80 Flatbush. That school is located at 362 Skirmerhorn Street. K347, which we're going to be referring to as St. Francis Xavier, located at 763 President Street. And then there are also two new buildings that are set to open during the 2026 to 2027 school year, which are K004, located at 4002 Fort Hamilton Parkway, and K680, which is located at 35 Delavan Street. So we could jump to the next slide, please. So before we jump into some of the data trends in the district, in the area surrounding these school buildings, I wanted to start off by just reading some guiding questions to keep in mind as we go over some of this data. So I think these are all good to sort of think about in terms of the questions that you might have in mind, and framing some context for what we're about to discuss. So what are the greatest needs and priorities for elementary schools in the area? What thoughts or insights did you have on enrollment trends in the community? Looking towards the future, what would you like to see in District 15 schools? And what additional information or data would you find most helpful for making some of these decisions around the use of these school buildings? So you could skip to the next slide and then one more. So before we jump into that data, I wanted to really quickly give an introduction into the work of the Office of District Planning, which Tori and I work for. So the Office of District Planning partners with school communities, CECs, superintendents, and other New York City public school offices to assess district needs and priorities to develop strategic plans. So our office has a number of levers that we can sort of leverage to impact school utilization. So among those levers, two of them, directly involve community education councils, which are rezonings and unzonings, which we work on directly in partnership with the CEC. But in addition, school mergers, the opening of new schools, grade reconfigurations, resightings of schools, adding new programs to schools, are all levers that our office has at our disposal to impact schools in school districts. So tonight we will be discussing sort of some of those levers in terms of how they impact these new school buildings, but this is just sort of an introduction to the work that we do as an office. And then I'll actually pass it to Donna really quickly to discuss the work of the Office of School Design.
So in 2019, then Chancellor Carranza launched something called Imagine New York City Schools, which was essentially a way for us to design with stakeholders in the community, CEC, parents, local electeds, everyone, new school models, and to completely reimagine existing schools. So as part of that structure, we'll be working together with District 15 and Superintendent Alvarez to reimagine and imagine these new schools that are coming up in the coming years.
Thanks, Donna. And then I'll pass it to Tori to discuss the seat need in District 15.
Thanks, Perry. So to start us off, we wanted to take a step back and think about District 15 on the whole. I think this information shouldn't be new to you all, as our office has presented on trends in terms of enrollment in the district at recent meetings. But we wanted to use this as our foundation as we talk about new capacity opening in the district. So as we think about the past 5 years, which does include those pandemic school years and change in, families living in the district, we have seen that in District 15, elementary school enrollment has declined by about 27% since the 2017-2018 school year. That's at elementary school students in District 15 schools. We also wanted to look at the number of District 15 residents who attend K to 12 schools, including district and charter schools. And here we wanted to look at more recent trends. So we compared that enrollment from the 2019-2020 school year to the 2022-2023 school year and saw that that number has declined by about 13%. In other words, the number of residents who are attending K to 12 schools in the district has declined. That's something that we are continuing to monitor as we, track and understand what choices families are making as families are either returning to the district or new families are moving in. But so far, we have seen a decline. With that in mind, and given the new capacity that is planned to open over the next few years that we're going to discuss tonight, we do anticipate District 15 to have an excess of seats at the elementary school level. So looking at what seats are available at existing or potential new schools, we think that there will be an excess of seats. If you go to the next slide, yes, we have our map of the district to give the lay of the land. You will see in this map, there are small boxes that call out each of the new buildings that Perry mentioned at the top. And we are going to go through each of these buildings one by one. You can go to the next slide. So beginning with new building K654 or 80 Flatbush. Some of this is information that we shared at last month's meeting, so I won't spend too much time on it, but this is our building overview. This building is planned to open in the 2024-2025 school year with a capacity of approximately 367 elementary school seats. This building will also serve as a replacement site for Khalil Gibran International Academy High School, as well as for one site of a District 75 school, PSK 753, the School for Career Development. What we wanted to share tonight is the New York City Public Schools recommendation for the best use of this building. And given its location within the PS 38 zone, where we have implemented a rezoning that has got into effect this year for the area, we recommend opening a new school as an unzoned borough-wide option to allow students from across Brooklyn to take advantage of this new building and to take advantage of its proximity to transportation. We have heard that there is interest in bringing dual language opportunities to this potential new school, and that is something that we are looking to explore further and where we have a little more time to plan for the model and design of the school, which Donna will share more about in just a moment. We wanted to include some data for how we sort of landed on this recommendation and how we think about the landscape in this area. So in the table below, and this is a chart that we include for other buildings as well, we included this year's enrollment as per audited register and the 5-year enrollment change. We also included this year's zone size for kindergarten. So the number of kindergarteners who live in that school's zone, as well as the 5-year change in the kindergarten zone size, and the most recent Blue Book utilization for that school. And we included 3 schools that are near 80 Flatbush, and those are PS 261, PS 38, where it sits in its zone, and PS 32. So something here that I think Councilmember Randall brought up last meeting was around looking at trends of families coming back. And so we wanted to include that zone size data to take a look at how kindergarten zone size has fluctuated more recently or where it stands now. And that's something that we will continue to look at closely. The next building we want to discuss is building K004, which we'll refer to as St. Catherine's. This building is planned to open in the 2026-2027 school year. It has a capacity of approximately 487 seats, and it is designed to serve middle school students and District 75. if we go, we don't yet have a rendering of this building, so we have its location on the map, but if you go to the next slide, we wanted to share a little bit more about the planning for this building, in that it was included in a proposal that was approved by the Panel for Educational Policy this year, where we will be opening a new middle school in Sunset Park that will be sited temporarily at an existing building, K333, in the 2024-2025 school year. It will open and incubate there as a new school before a future resiting to St. Catherine's once that building has been constructed. This school will admit students through the middle school admissions process for the 2024-2025 school year using an open admissions method as per the district. And we anticipate that the new middle school will serve students in an ASD Horizon program, though that is certainly contingent upon approval of funding for ASD Horizon schools. And we will talk about the process for designing these as new schools and welcome questions and feedback. So bear with us as we tell you more information. The third building that we want to discuss tonight is building K680. This building is also a sort of known construction project. It is expected to open in the 2026-2027 school year, though we anticipate that to be a spring 2027 opening. It has a capacity of approximately 557 seats, and it is planned to serve the Red Hook Neighborhood School as it reconfigures its grades from an elementary school to a middle school, as well as District 75 students. So just for clarity, for K004 and for K680, there are approved and intended plans for both of those new construction buildings. And 80 Flatbush, we discussed our recommendation, and now we have the new building K347, which we refer to as St. Francis Xavier, where I know Superintendent Alvarez had a question in the chat about the use of this building as well. So it is planned to open in the 2024-2025 school year. It has a capacity of approximately 451 seats. It is designed to serve elementary school students. It includes a large auditorium that is a multi-purpose space, but there is no gym or outdoor play space at this building. I think we need to go forward a few slides to K347. There we go. Thank you. So this is a building where, as Superintendent Alvarez mentioned, there's ongoing planning to determine the best use of this space. It is located within PS 321's zone there at the top of the map. We pulled several schools in the area. These are schools that we discussed at last month's CEC meeting, but here you'll see that we added the kindergarten zone size in addition to enrollment trends. The number of families and school enrollment in this area has been declining, which you'll notice by the 5-year enrollment change. But if you look at the column at the far right with the Blue Book building utilization, you'll notice that most schools in this area remain overutilized or with utilization rates over 100%. With that in mind, we are still exploring options for the use of this space. Those, as we mentioned last time, do include potentially resiting an existing school from their current location to this new building, or perhaps opening a new school. So that's something where we certainly are seeking and welcome feedback, ideas or concerns, or where the community has identified needs in this area. That is our overview of the buildings and recommendations or options as they exist so far. We'll turn it over to Donna to talk about the school design process, since we have discussed several new schools.
Hi again. So the planning for new schools, the process begins with the superintendent and the community, but there is no formal model or design because it'll be led by Superintendent Alvarez in cooperation with everyone from the community who would like to participate. Our office, the Office of School Design, partners with Superintendent Alvarez, and we, through the leadership of Raphael, will invite community members in to serve on a design team so that all voices can be heard and we can respond to community needs and wants in terms of the new schools, the new school design. And we welcome student voices around that table. My own two sons, now 24 and 30, went to District 15 schools, and they have certainly given me a lot of advice over the years about what we could have done or can still do differently. So student voices are very much a part of a core part of designing schools. And you know, we absolutely expect that this process will yield excellent design options for new schools in District 15. The way that this works, if you go to the next slide, thank you very much. You know, the process began this winter as we have worked with the superintendent, with our colleagues in the Office of District Planning to begin to think about what, in terms of the seat need and the overall view of the district, what might be happening. And now we will work to, is this something that you can speak to? Of course. Okay.
Yes. So you'll see that it's spring. Everyone is happy that it is spring outside.
Almost.
Almost. So we have been working closely across our offices with Superintendent Alvarez, with the CEC to think about needs related to these new buildings as they open. You'll see that tonight we recommended at AD Flatbush opening a new unzoned school. And that is, you know, something where had we been considering a rezoning, we would have sort of determined that and started that process to plan for a rezoning that would go before a vote from the CEC in the fall. So this is where, you know, given the landscape of where schools are located, what seat need is like, what programmatic models might be of interest, we've determined that at least for AD Flatbush, we would be pursuing a non-zoned option. And that may differ depending on the circumstances of other buildings.
So the design team, now is a perfect time for anybody who's interested from District 15 to reach out to the superintendent and as he is convening a design team for these buildings, design teams, and to voice your opinion and see if you can get on that team. It's community voice is key for designing these schools because at Central, and I'm sure what you all have seen since Superintendent Alvarez has taken the lead of the district, we want school to be something that happens with you, with your children, and not to you. So we're very serious about this design team and we invite everyone to participate. After we begin this process this summer, we will, and Superintendent Alvarez and I spoke about this tonight, we will begin identifying candidates who will lead these schools. They're, for sort of legal reasons, they're usually called the project director. It's not, and they become the interim acting principal. So there's a formal process for them to take the lead and help design and help lead those design team meetings. And then, of course, when the school opens up in the fall of 2024, there will be an official C30 process, as there always is, to make the interim acting project director the principal. During the winter, that person starts full-time and is released from whatever their current role is by the DOE. And then they develop instructional and operational plans for the school with in collaboration with the Office of School Design and many other offices at what we call Tweed, the central courthouse, central DOE, so that the plans can come to fruition before the school opens doors in September. Staff hiring and school naming follow. There is a formal process, Chancellor's Regulations A860, to name a school. All schools start out by either the building name, which, you know, feels a little lugubrious, or 80 Flatbush, St. Catherine. And then there's a formal process where the stakeholders in the school, the leader, the SLT, the PA come together, name the school, and there's very few rules. One rule is that you can never name a school after a person who's still alive. So that will follow in the fall. And I think that's really sort of it.
The next slide has the new schools or the naming process. So we have that in the deck.
And you can look up the regulation. It's nice and long.
All right, well,
I see some things in the chat. Hold on.
yes, I think
Okay.
now is a great time to take some questions / comments. Let's see.
Okay, I'll look in the chat and see.
Let's go to the interpreters.
Okay, can we go to the interpreters first for questions?
线上的家长如果有任何
Is there,
问题，
are there
我们
any
可以
questions
帮
from
你
the Spanish line?
翻译。
No question in Spanish line.
Are
No
there
questions
any
on the-
questions from the Mandarin line?
No questions on the Mandarin line, thank you.
Okay, are there any questions on the Bangla line? I guess that was a no. I don't know. Okay. Why am I still in? Okay. All right, let me look in the chat for questions.
I see there's a question from Johanna. Does the decline in enrollment include 22 to 23 data? So the answer to that is yes. The enrollment tables that we were using for data for this evening did include enrollment from this year as well. So when we showed 5-year enrollment change, that included the enrollment totals from the current school year.
What slide was that? It's on the 80 Flatbush and the President Street slides. Oh.
So 13, for example.
Janet Marty asks, how can we get involved to ensure the funding for the ASD Horizon Middle School?
That's the superintendent.
Right,
Raphael.
right. She should ask to be
Absolutely.
involved in that
Yeah, because
design team.
yeah, I mean, and the funding for these programs is sort of, it comes out of central, and so it's an independent decision. But I'm sure that Raphael can use support on that, so that would be a Raphael call.
And they also
I'm
want to
sorry,
know,
there's a lot of
which
echo.
75 program will be co-located at the St. Catherine's building.
So I don't think that we have the specific DBN for the District 75 program that will be at that school building. But we work directly with the District 75 office to determine that. But since there's still that the opening of that building is still a couple of years out, we haven't determined the DBN for that school just yet.
Anne Blair asks, could the K347 be a 3K or UPK center?
That's a good question, and thank you for bringing that to our attention tonight. That is certainly something that we have considered as a need in the district. I know we have looked at what existing 3K and pre-K options are currently available for UPK in the area. That is in some ways similar to ASD programming. That is funding that is separate from how K to 12 funding is considered and how our office plans. So it's something that we have mentioned to the Division of Early Childhood Education at New York City Public Schools, and something that we will continue to look into. At this time, that building was not designed to be an early childhood center like some other standalone 3K pre-K centers are in the district. And that funding right now is not intended for it to be an early childhood site. But it is something that we are assessing as an option, that we don't think it is likely that there will be funding to expand.
Somebody else raised the issue of ensuring the implementation of the class size bill. And whether that is being taken into account in any of this.
So there is a working group around the class size law that's currently, I think, starting to be convened, that the chancellor has sort of facilitated or established. And they are sort of determining the path forward in terms of how the class size law will be implemented. It is definitely something that we're keeping in mind as we plan new school buildings. But this evening, we're sort of around the utilization of this space to open new schools. I think that based on the determinations we've made, the kind of recommendation we've made specifically around 80 Flatbush would work within those class size law limitations as well.
Yes, and our office will be working closely with Superintendent Alvarez if we're all here over the next 5 years, as we have that kind of amount of time to implement the class size law. And our office will be partnering closely with districts to think about space and how we're able to implement.
I don't see any other questions in the chat. Are there questions in the audience? Mary, you want to come up to the mic?
More of a comment concerning our school. We're talking about space utilization and designing, and having all the voices of the parents included for designing a new school. And in the meantime, our school, we do not have enough space. We are co-located. We have 4 schools, on our campus. So it's Borum Hill School of International Studies. And so when we see things like this happening and moving in the district, we have hope that maybe we will have some space opening in our building. So is there hope? I mean, we know that, I'm going to be very frank and direct. We know that there is an elementary charter that is going, the enrollment is declining, and hopefully the ideal world would be getting our space back in that building for our middle school and high school, because literally our students are having, we have simultaneous classes in the library, classes like ELA, whatever. Then we have OT in the back of the library happening in the same time that a speech therapy happening. And this is, I see it because I'm the co-president for the PTA, and our office is just there. So we're all in the back of the library, and and then ESL comes in the middle of the library. You have kids having classes on the floor, in the hallways, high schoolers. So we have a dire situation at the Borum Hill School of International Studies. So when things are moving like this, we just want to put it in the, on the map, because, and our school is growing. We just had 4 families who transferred from District 13 to, from MS 915 to our school. So because there is an attraction for the IB program, and families like to have their kids going from 6th grade,
Sure.
So my question, is there hope? Voila, so forgive me to be so direct, but
Not at all. We
Uh,
appreciate you.
Oh, that's good.
thank you for organizing this, Camille.
Thank you so much.
For the CEC.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Yeah, I'll just add that my child also attends K 497 and I witnessed one of the gym classes that takes place. There's overflow and the kids are working out in the hallway.
Yeah.
Which was just, that's completely inappropriate to have the kids doing their exercises in the hallway. It just seems like it's dangerous. And what with our other security concerns in this new world of guns, to have buildings with co-locations with multiple entrances and exits, it's a security concern to have all these co-locations.
I'll just add, Catherine Trotter, I'm also a parent at BHS. The way that the building is configured, our students have to go, if they're on the second floor or the third floor, and they need to go to the other side of the third floor, they have to walk downstairs to the first floor and go back up, because the spaces that are being shared with the charter school are located in the middle of that. So it's just, you know, it is inconvenient and taking up time our students could be using.
I'm sorry, I
Also,
can't hear. The
something
mic
that
is not good right
fact,
now.
There
Whoever
are
speaking.
at least 2 or 3 rooms that have been requested that, comment dire, the charter has been asked to give back that space, but there is no enforcement from the DOE side. So the principal is doing a good job. I mean, yes, free, but they are make-believe being used, you know, like decorated for the 100 day, etc. But if you go like we went, Antonia, and you look inside, you see that there is no trace of a real messy classroom happening, etc.
It's being used as an office,
Yeah.
2 classrooms, and there's a staff member sitting there on a
Yeah.
computer.
Yeah, make believe, so it's
And also they lost their school-based health center recently. And so that was a big loss. And, you know, not having that healthcare component and having 4 schools in the building is kind of crazy. So I think that, like, we all agree here that breaking up a co-location would be ideal. And we can talk about this later, about what's happening with the state right now in this moment. And so we're hearing about 22 zombie charters that might be reauthorized. And just want to go on the record to say that we do not want any more charters in District 15. And as far as I know, nobody else wants any charters in their district. But District 20 has no charters, and they are a big proponent of school choice. So maybe the 22 could go into District 20. Just something to consider.
Hey, we have a hand up, yeah. Nancy Cruz, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yes. I'll also okay. Hi, everyone. Sorry, this is back to, I raised my hand a while ago, so sorry if I'm stepping back a little bit. So just 2 things is, certainly I'm very interested in the reduced class size mandate, and I heard the answer, and it felt to me, it caused me a little concerns. I just want to make sure that when we have this gift of extra real estate, that we're thinking about the class size mandate and how that fits into all of this, because if we fail to plan, we can just plan to fail around that. And I guess the other thing is, listening about this co-location, I haven't heard I didn't hear anything about that brought up previously, but that sounds like a really important and immediate issue to deal with as well, now that we have these buildings. So I just wanted to mention that as well. I just want to make sure that we are thinking about this reducing class sizes when we're looking at extra real estate, because that has been an issue, right? Okay.
any of the members have any comments? That they'd like to share?
Well, I think Tori wanted to respond to me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries.
I'm so sorry.
I was just going to say, thank you, Nancy, for raising both of those. And I think it kind of highlights how we are thinking about the vast needs of the district, especially as we think about these new buildings. We will certainly be planning for implementing the reduced class sizes across the district. I do think it's worth mentioning that just practically speaking, when we're thinking about a building like President Street, given its location and proximity to the other elementary schools that we highlighted in the chart, you know, I think we have an opportunity maybe in future school years to think about either, considering if a rezoning in the area would help alleviate space constraints and help allow for the implementation of the class size law. There is also, the potential for any existing elementary schools to use the building, though that would likely involve split siding the school if there, was no rezoning to adjust how many families are zoned to a given school. So those are some ways that we have thought about, creatively using new capacity to help meet the needs of existing schools. In particular, when we looked at schools that are overutilized currently, that would have even more trouble given their existing space to implement the class size law. So that's something where it would be helpful if you have identified that as a need, or for families of those schools in the area. If that's something that feels like a pressing concern, we are always happy to hear from you. And the other point about the co-location, so we've heard from several families from VHS, and I think have heard and will hear from the CEC about, the state of co-locations in District 15. And that is something where we will also explore how best to support the schools that are in building K293, and if there are any opportunities to help alleviate the space concerns in the building. And those are both very helpful for us to hear tonight.
For 680 and 347, are the plans to start to determine how the admission process will work and the zoning of it? Is that a conversation that's happening this year, that's or starting to happen now, or will happen closer to 2026, 2027, which is when it will be open?
For our 2026, 2027 buildings.
Yeah.
So for St. Catherine's, because we have already through a proposal planned for that to serve a new middle school, we have already included in a written educational impact statement that building's admissions method will be open admissions, like the other District 15 middle schools. And then for K680, that building is planned to serve the Harbor Middle School or the Red Hook Neighborhood School in its future years. And so it too will also follow a similar planning cycle. So we are not at this time planning for any rezonings or change to admissions methods for either of those buildings.
And is there a time frame in which those conversations are being planned to happen? Or I know it's too early. I guess my concern was, are we getting ahead of ourselves, not knowing what the demographics are going to look like, by then, considering how quickly things have changed in the past even couple of years?
That's a great point, especially given changing demographics. I'm not sure, Perry, if you have any experience with this, but we actually, for those two buildings, have essentially come to a determination already, because it was included in the proposal for the grade reconfiguration and resiting of the Red Hook Neighborhood School, and for the opening and future resiting of the new middle school. So that it has already been sort of written and has been planned that they will be middle schools with open admissions methods.
I'm mostly concerned with the makeup or the zoning of the school itself.
So just to add to what Tori was saying, I think that District 15 is unique in terms of, like, obviously the middle school level enrollment and admissions is fairly uniform across middle schools. So because the schools in 26 to 27 that will be opening are at the middle school level, when we sort of announced the opening of those schools in the sort of legal educational impact statement documents, the admissions for those schools was laid out in accordance with like the other middle school admissions option. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
No, for middle school.
It's gonna become part of the diversity plan. Now, if we want to talk about changing the percentages, that's a conversation that could come up in a few years, but that wouldn't happen with district plan.
I see a hand raised. Rayhan, do you want to unmute?
Yeah, I can't hear you guys super well. Can you hear me though?
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I have a question about middle school enrollment. I don't know if that's something that you can address. It's related to the D15 diversity plan.
Try us.
I'll try it. Okay, so when the plan was implemented, it says in the plan that in years 2 and 3, that the enrollment numbers will be evaluated and that schools not meeting the 52% priority student enrollment will be provided funding and support so that they can get to that number 52 or within that range of 40 to 75. And that in year 4, all schools would be assessed and the DOE will explore and implement other approaches for enrollment if all schools are not within that 40 to 75% range. There are 3 of our schools that are not in that range. And there are 2 that were actually right in that sweet spot, around 50% priority kids before the plan was implemented. Those 2 schools are well below the range now, and they're getting worse every single year. And they have lost their Title I funding. I've talked about this many times. Those are 2 6 through 12 schools in our district. It's Brooklyn Collaborative and Park Slope Collegiate. Park Slope Collegiate has not lost their funding yet, but they are sure to lose it very soon. Brooklyn Collaborative lost our funding this year. We didn't have our Title I funding, so that was $400,000 out of our budget that we did not receive. We have not received any funding and support to improve our numbers. And I have not seen any efforts made to explore and implement other approaches for improving enrollment. The loss of funding is like something we cannot weather. We are a 6 through 12 school. Our grades 9 through 12 are we have concentrated poverty in our grades 9 through 12, as does Park Slope Collegiate. So these are not schools that are not meeting the Title I threshold and don't need the money. We definitely need that money to support our students. I have raised with various people potential options for trying to bridge the gap in the funding loss until enrollment can fix the enrollment numbers as they are supposed to under the D15 diversity plan. And I have not heard back from anybody about how we are going to do that, but we were $400,000 short this year at Brooklyn Collaborative. We will be $400,000 short next year. Our PTA cannot raise $400,000. We need that money. And there are mechanisms for getting us that money. As we heard on earlier CEC meetings, there are ways to bridge the gap when there is breakage in enrollment. We are doing it in this district right now for our gifted and talented classrooms that nobody wants to attend, but our schools have to put a teacher in those classrooms with very few children. And there is SAM funding that has been provided to support those schools so that they can continue to have those extremely small, under-enrolled classrooms for privileged children. It is time to provide that funding, SAM funding, to bridge the gap for these schools that are losing their Title I funding until the DOE has done this assessment and implemented other approaches for ensuring that enrollment is even across the district. We should not be having schools that are not integrated after the implementation of this plan. We were supposed to evaluate every single year. We pushed and pushed for those evaluations to happen every single year. They did not happen. WXY has been contracted to do an evaluation this year. but we've already lost the money that we were concerned that we would lose when this plan was implemented, and I'm not seeing anybody doing anything about it. Is something going to happen with enrollment this year to make sure that children are evenly distributed? And in addition to the diversity of students across the district, it's also really important to realize that all of our schools should have the same capacity filled. So we should not have some middle schools that are grossly under-enrolled and others that are filled to the brim. If we have, 80% of the students in middle school to fill all of our seats, then every single middle school should be filled to 80% capacity, not some schools to 100% capacity and some at 50% capacity. This is something that enrollment can very easily do. Distribute our children evenly across the district and make sure that we have funding if we have lost our Title I funding.
So thank you so much for that question. I think there's an echo. I don't know if. Okay, great. So really appreciate that question. I think you sort of hinted at this at the beginning, but our office wouldn't be the best to provide a great answer to that question, but I think that the Office of Student Enrollment, as well as Superintendent Alvarez, would be able to provide more information. I know for the Office of Student Enrollment, you could reach out to them at msenrollment@schools.nyc.gov with specific questions for them. But I also think reaching out to Superintendent Alvarez regarding this would be helpful as well.
Yeah, I have reached out to him about it. I reached out to other superintendents about it as well. So
Sorry, I think we might have missed the first part of what you said there, just trying to deal with the echo situation. So if you could just
sorry
repeat
about
that.
Yeah, so I have reached out to Alvarez about it. And the issue with distributing the kids who are like the priority kids that we're trying to distribute across all of our schools, that's a District 15 diversity plan issue. The concern about the way that middle school enrollment is being implemented so that all of our schools are not at the equal percent capacity that they have, that's not a diversity plan issue as much as that is an enrollment issue. So you could say, like, we only have 80% of the students that we could seat across all of our schools. So we're going to make sure that no school has more than 80%. That way we make sure that all of our schools are being equally utilized and they can have equal access to small classes. So it would support all of our kids and all of our schools. And I know that when we initially developed the plan, the thought was, oh, let's give as many people their highest ranked choice as possible. And what that is ultimately doing, we're seeing now that, we're losing enrollment in our middle school. We're seeing that means that we have some schools that are not being utilized as much as others. And I think we need to rethink that and make sure that the kids are equally distributed across all of our schools.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I appreciate the points you made there. And I think that it's a valid point regarding sort of the impact on the efficacy of the diversity plan being impacted by having some schools below capacity and some schools at full capacity. Totally understand that. I think that it gets at like a DOE-wide policy issue that, obviously, as you mentioned there as well, the goal, currently of the DOE is for parents to be placed with their top choice or one of their top choices, if possible, if there's space at those schools. But I definitely take the point that you made there regarding, the diversity plan's effectiveness being impacted by sort of capacity changes. Would definitely just reiterate that I think the Office of Student Enrollment would be the best folks to reach out to for getting more information on that policy and also just sharing that message with their office as well.
Yeah, I understand that. And I think that, because of our diversity plan, we really do need smaller classrooms more than we would otherwise, right? This was something that came up throughout the planning process for this diversity plan. And it was the one thing that we really were pushing for was a lower cap on our class sizes so that our teachers could adequately serve a range of learners within the same classroom. Because what we had been doing historically was segregating our children, and we wanted to put them together. And that was something that required more contact with kids, fewer kids in the classroom. And it was really hard to make the argument for it, and that did not end up in the plan. Now that we have our middle schools somewhat under enrolled, it's an opportunity for us to make sure that our classes are as small as possible. And so even if your policy at enrollment and planning is to give people the highest choice ranked on their application, I think for our middle schools in particular, we should have a different strategy in place. And because we should want to keep our class sizes as small as possible, specifically because we're trying to cater to a range of learners within a single classroom. And that really does require as small a classroom as possible. So just throwing that out there, and I will send an email to enrollment too. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Can we have Liz Phillips next? Johanna, I see you're up, but Liz had her hand up first.
Thank you. This is Liz Phillips. I'm the principal of PS 321. And I'm sorry to say I was having Zoom problems, so I missed the beginning of the presentation about St. Francis, but I do understand that you mentioned possibilities of rezoning or split siting schools. And I wanted to say that I am at this point really opposed to that if it involves PS 321. We rezoned about 10 years ago. It was a very complicated process. I was very much in favor of it because we were severely overcrowded at that time. And, after working really hard for over a year, we got a lot of support for it. I think it worked out really well. We are not over enrolled now. We have enough space. We even have, at this point, we are taking basically out of zone kindergartners are being assigned to our school. We could easily be smaller if the reduced class size actually comes through. I am still skeptical about where the money is coming from for this reduced class size. So I am also a little hesitant to plan 4 years in advance for something that I am not convinced is going to happen since we don't have the money for reducing class size. But I also would like to say, this school is opening in a year from September. And if anything is being considered that involves PS 321, I think there needs to be much more. I think we need to meet about it. Our parents need to be involved, because other than, one conversation I had with enrollment, there has been no talk of this. And yet it seems like perhaps it's back on the table. I think if we're worried about what will happen with reduced class size in some of the Park Slope schools, I would see an unzoned school as one option. Somebody else is talking, but I would see an unzoned school as something to think about for that school. But in any case, I would certainly want to be very involved if anybody is considering split siting or rezoning 321.
Thank you, Principal Phillips. Yes, and I think I'm not sure if you were on when we were presenting on the buildings. I think we actually met, you and I, a few months ago. But for the new building, St. Francis Xavier, the New York City Public Schools at this time does not have a recommended option for the best use of the building just yet. We are still in the exploring phase. And I think, those options have included potentially supporting existing schools. We've heard some concerns about co-locations tonight. It could also involve, as you just mentioned, opening a new unzoned elementary school as one option for that space. Where we mentioned a potential rezoning or split siting was in response to a parent's concern about how we are planning in advance to implement the class size law. And that's something where if we were to use this new capacity to support existing schools, you know, this building is in the zone of your school. So that's where that came up. So I don't want you to think any planning is being done without you. Certainly, if there were any plans involving PS 321, or just as we think about a new building opening in your same zone, we would involve your school community very closely. But we are still in the early phases here of thinking about how best to use the building. We've heard some ideas already tonight, and we continue to welcome other thoughts, questions, concerns, and ideas, in particular for the St. Francis Xavier building.
Thank you.
Johanna? Do you want to ask a question?
Hi there. Piggybacking on what Rayhan was talking about middle school, I'm on the SLT at Parkville Collegiate, and I really am interested in, and as a school, philosophically, we don't believe in heavy marketing in terms of our schools, and we certainly aren't given any budget for marketing our schools, and so as a result, like our enrollment patterns have changed dramatically because of just who comes to us. And I think Rayhan's idea of really making sure that there's an equitable distribution of seats across the schools is really important. I'm on a phone, and so I couldn't see the slides, and so I'm not sure what data was presented about enrollment in District 15 middle schools in terms of what the recent trends are and the justifications for building two new schools. If something in particular, if we're talking about special ed seats, which I know are in shortage, especially for some of our newbiest students. But you know, as our SLT meets and talks about declining class sizes, declining enrollment, losing our diversity, our treasured diversity in the middle school, it's really hard to see, to balance that against what the against building two more schools, middle schools in our district, and then what is going to happen to ensure that it just doesn't become a cutthroat free-for-all where we're competing for students, because that's where the money comes from. And again, yes, absolutely, like class size, you know, our model is based on differentiated instruction and getting rid of screens, and how can we not really focus on making sure that our class sizes are balanced across the schools rather than just catering to just complete parent choice in those lessons. Thanks. Oh, I do want to just also say I'm a member of the class size working group, and so if anybody in District 15 has some, we only met once so far, but on your, as District 15 fangirl, District 15 parent and employee, I'm happy to hear everybody's thoughts on that matter. And if you want, I can put my contact info in the chat for that.
All right, I don't see any other hands up. I just have one comment to make, if that's okay, Camille.
Yep.
So we have a lot of potential space coming online. We have the class size bill that we heard many people raise tonight as an issue. We have co-locations. We heard people talk about co-locations. We heard about enrollment loss, but we also heard about uneven utilization. And so it seems like there's a lot of opportunities here to solve a lot of problems, which is kind of a exciting, good thing. I haven't heard about the influx of migrant students, and I was actually hoping that the mention of a dual language program potentially at 80 Flatbush could be a way to open the door to students who have found themselves in our borough, in our city, from other countries. And I think many of them, of course, they speak other languages, but I think the preponderance of them speak Spanish. So unless there's other data that
Hmm.
shows that most of them speak Creole French or something else, I would suggest that maybe that be a Spanish TLP.
I think two quick things. One, and Donna, if you have anything to share about the process, since we did mention that was an idea for programming at 80 Flatbush. I think for those of you on the chat, and as CEC 15 shares our presentation out, in the deck that we created, there are 2 slides that include some data on dual language existing programs across. We included District 15 and nearby districts 13, 17, and 20 that show existing dual language programs, how many exist, what languages, as well as some data on K-5 students who qualify for dual language or language services. It's not in the printed copy. It's an appendix that we included in the digital version. But I think sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. You're flipping through. But Antonia, you raise a really interesting point. I think maybe some additional analysis we could do is on when and where those families are entering our system. And in particular, if certain languages are seeing an increase at different rates than others, because we know there is a baseline large population of families who speak Spanish and Mandarin or Cantonese in the district. But you'll see in the data, there's also a relatively high number of students who speak Bangla, Arabic. Those are included as well. So that's something where, Donna, I don't know if you want to mention how we might, yeah.
Yeah, so the Division of Multilingual Learners, we did meet with them last year about this to talk about seat need. And I think it's probably a good time, if there has been an influx, a certain number in District 15, to take a look at what the seat need might be for that. So point well taken. And I think opportunity is really the operative. I think there is an opportunity to think about a lot of things here.
Yeah.
But we can certainly go back to DML and see what the latest numbers are.
Thank you.
I think we have to also just acknowledge that there is a high school in that building that has a dual language program already for Arabic, and we have a lot of Arabic students in our district. And so that could be another option.
Very hard to staff, but yes,
Nonetheless,
absolutely.
the need is
Mhm.
there.
That should not,
We only
should
need
not
a few
stop us.
teachers.
Mhm.
Right.
Oh, hi. I'm actually, well, my name is Maya Molina. I'm here on behalf of the Congressman Mary Goldsmith. I was born and raised in Sunset Park, South, so growing up, I needed additional languages when my parents spoke Spanish. But even then, could we I'm new to CEC and just meetings in general. Is there existing programs where there hasn't bilingual programs within existing schools? And has that increase or decrease? And is there a possibility based on enrollment to have classes that are just bilingual, that they couldn't be integrated into the English only at some point? Or for students to be integrated into English only classes at some point? So that could increase capacity, but also based off of the reduction, the class size, just having more programs with less students per school. So instead of segregating them into just one school for just multilingual students, we can have these programs continue to exist in schools. So I mean, there's a suggestion, but question.
As far as I know, we don't have any bilingual, is it transitional bilingual? We don't have any of those programs in District 15. So, I mean, that is definitely something we should talk about and assess if that type of program makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And I also just want to add that, all DOE schools are required to provide English language learner services to students that need it. But dual language programs provide a different type of education in the home language of the students in the class. So think it's a really valid point and one that, we should definitely consider in planning these.
And
programs.
students who, when they enter school through the testing that they do, and families are invited to talk about whether they want a traditional, a transitional bilingual. And so, and if it's requested by a certain number of parents, we have to have one. So the fact that there may not be one means that nobody has not enough of a mass of people has said, we need this or we want this. And I think there are many different reasons for that. I think a lot of times people are like, I want my child to, do this or that. But I know that having dual language programs inside not freestanding dual language schools is another issue of special funding, just like Horizon is. And so when we go back to DML to find out what are the latest numbers, it's a question we can ask also, but that's a question for Raphael, for Superintendent Alvarez, because you can have a program as long as you have the funding, right?
And just a comment, I mean, growing up, my parents immigrated like over 40 years ago. So that was a different way of immigrants rather than the current one. So it's just to keep into account those existing ways of immigrants coming.
How things
into
are
the
evolving,
country.
yes.
Yeah, because it's gonna continue happening. It's just gonna be from different parts of different countries. But moving forward, maybe that can just be taken into account when opening new schools.
Yeah, and I think this conversation came from us following up on 80 Flatbush, but the new middle school in Sunset Park is also one where I think Donna and team and Superintendent Alvarez and the Division of Multilingual Learners will also be thinking about needs and if dual language programming makes sense in that middle school too.
What's the cross street with 80 Flatbush? What level?
Third Avenue, Third and Flatbush. There's like a triangle there.
I don't picture it.
Yeah.
It's above Church Avenue?
No, it's in downtown Brooklyn.
No, it's the other side.
It's
All the way
Flatbush
down.
Avenue Extension.
It's there. Well, I went so far.
It's like near District 13.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Just wanted to say something. District 3, I was part of a group of discussing the MML, and District 3 opens to so many people from and they have Korean, Russian, Italian. So, but the need has to come from a group of parents who wants to launch it. And then we have, of course, as you said, you need to have the funding, but somehow it happens. You always find funding through embassies or grants or.
I don't think there's anyone. Did you have a question? Okay, so then I thank you all so very much and appreciate your time and let me see, where are we on the agenda? Sorry, next one here. I'll just read to you that Liz Phillips said, because my Zoom went out, I missed whatever you said about NEST program, but there is a huge need for more seats on the elementary level. And I hope that this will be considered as part of what might happen at St. Francis, perhaps along with an unzoned school. One advantage of an unzoned school is it gives more flexibility if we do end up with funding for reduced class size, since it's very hard to predict how things will stand in terms of enrollment in different schools in 4 years.
You said at the beginning there was a need for NEST.
Yeah.
Okay.
NEST programming. And then Johanna saying there are at least 5 elementary schools with dual language Spanish and at least 3 with dual language Mandarin in D15. 2 D15 middle schools have dual language Spanish, but none have dual language Chinese. True. And thank you for bringing that up. Okay.
Could I get some clarification on dual language versus transitional language programs? Because my understanding of dual language is the teaching occurs in both Spanish and English as opposed to helping and transitioning to one language, doing instructions in one language, just English while giving support.
So the way I understand it is that the group starts out heavy in the home language. And then so it's like, let's just say 6 months, 90% of the instruction is in the home language. And then as the time is progressing, they're like, so after a number of years, 90% would be in English. And so there's a really, really great video on all of this explaining it. So I will look for that and we'll share that. And maybe we'll just have a presentation on that because it's very interesting. Yeah, there's three different tracks for language. Okay, so thank you all. I appreciate your time. 8:44. I'm going to hand the floor over to Deanna, and she is going to give the high school superintendent report. Thank you. Just get this.
Good evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure being here with a very involved CEC, representing Brooklyn North High Schools. Can we, am I controlling this?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you could please. Okay, perfect. Okay, so just going over our goals that focused on making sure our families are engaged with the school so we can have our students succeed 100% and making sure that they increase their college readiness by 10%. Next. Some good news that's as a result measured by the NYCED accountability. All of our 47 schools have achieved good standing status. And as of March 31st, all of our schools were above 80% attendance, so that is good. Next. Here we could take a look at the data for the high schools in your district. And this has a more up-to-date attendance. If you see here, so it's April 7th, it went up about 1 point. The lowest attendance is at 81 at John Jay Law and Cyber Arts, but the rest, it goes up to 93. Next. We just wanted to have a Women's History Month recap where Superintendent Ross participated in a panel with international leaders to discuss women's economic empowerment and changing. And also she attended the United Nations parallel event with one of her students. Once you receive the deck, you'll be able to see more information about it. Next. And here we wanted to share some of the sisterhood events that the district attended. Digital arts and tech with Miss Fox. She had a beautiful event. Oh, some tears were shared. Next. Some updates of 5 of our Brooklyn North High Schools were selected for the all-city team. So kudos to our basketball teams. Next. And I just wanted to share some of the things that have been going on. Today we had our principal meetings at Maxwell High School. No, Transit Tech, I'm sorry. I feel like it's been a very long day, but our principals presented problems going on in the schools, and then they got some time to work together and figure out solutions, give feedback, ideas to each other. So very engaged activities throughout the day. Next. Some of the things here sharing from digital arts and CASA, as mentioned, Ms. Fox had a beautiful event. I'm not sure if you could read what her shirt says, but it was very funny. Cute. It said there is not substitutes for parent coordinators, so we're planning to have that shirt for all of our parent coordinators. Next. Students in Action Town Hall happened on March 24th. We got together at Boys and Girls High School. Chancellor Banks was there. He was here and asked some questions from our students. They were happy, even though that it was a short day, they stayed after to ask questions, take pictures, make connections. And then the next slide, when you're able to receive the date, you will see some of the questions that our students asked. Next. Some MBSK updates. We will have an event on Thursday as well for MSK. So next. Some community resources are open for every district, affordable housing virtual town hall. You can share with your families in case they're interested on affordable housing information, a health and wellness community fair on May 10th, and a 5th annual autism awareness 5K walk run on April 22nd. Already passed, but just wanted to put out there that things going on. Next. And as always, you can take a look at our social media. We're constantly posting every principals meetings, counselor meetings, parent coordinators, or any other event going on in our website, and as well as monthly district digest. And our interactive map, as always, good to have. And that will be all from us. Do you have any questions, concerns, suggestions?
Any questions from the interpretation lines?
Oh, let's see. Could the interpretation lines check for questions? Are there any questions from the Mandarin line?
There are no questions on the Mandarin line. Thank you.
Are there
There's no
any
question in Spanish line.
and the Bengal line? I guess there are no
Alrighty,
questions.
well, good night, everyone.
I actually have a question, if
Oh,
you don't mind.
yes, of course.
So there's a contract that the DOE made with Pearson, and there are 6 high schools that have been chosen to do this pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And are any of those in Brooklyn North?
Oh, yes. I don't know the name of all of them, but I believe
How many of them?
I think it was either 6 or 9. I will get back to you next month.
No, but I think there was only 6 in the entire city.
In the entire city. Oh, I'm not too sure. I'm thinking about different program than that.
This is a career and college readiness advisory.
Oh, let me write it down and then I'll ask you and Superintendent Ross about it, and then I'll get back to you.
Okay, cool, because there's a lot of mystery around what's happening, and I'm sure it's like
So
$1 million contract with Pearson, who I'll just go on the record saying that is not a company that the DOE should be working with.
career readiness pilot program with Pearson, right?
Yep. So we want to find out how to opt out of that. Because the last thing that parents want is for Pearson to have their children's data as they're exiting the system.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you here, and please give our best regards to Superintendent Ross. Thank you so much. Nancy, did you have a question?
I sure do. Can you please elaborate on that comment?
Nancy,
Excuse me.
you have your hand up.
Yes, can you not hear me?
Now I can. Yes.
Oh, okay, that's weird. I started my video and that unmuted me. Can you elaborate on what you're just talking about Pearson having data? What is the issue?
Yes, I can. So a couple of days ago, I received an invitation from the DOE. It was sent to parent leaders. I believe that you received it also in the President's Council email. I will just pull it up and read it to you all. It's on college and career readiness. 1 minute.
I might have gone into my spam. Let's see.
Okay, so there is going to be a meeting for parent leaders this Friday night, April 28th at 6 p.m. from 6 to 7 p.m. And it is titled College and Career Readiness Spotlight Report Review. And we received email on the behalf of the Office of Student Pathways. You are invited to join New York City Public School and Pearson to review the Prototype Spotlight Report, a new college and career readiness tool being piloted for 10th grade students in 6 high schools this spring. This report will pull in individual student data and tailored information about college and career opportunities that may be of interest to each student. The goal of the report is to illuminate the college and career possibilities ahead of students, grounded in useful information about what they can do to make their desired next steps a reality. Now, all of that sounds really good, and the DOE should be doing that. That is literally the job of our guidance counselors. So what this pilot program is, I'm not sure. How much that contract is, I don't know. We do a pretty decent job of reviewing the contracts that get approved by the PEP. So I am going to have to go back to my notes and figure out how that got missed. And I will invite some of our PEP members to come and give their opinions on that as well. So that's all the information I can share in this moment. I will forward that email to you, Nancy, that you may share with the President's Council. Actually,
Thank you.
I can share it with the President's Council again. I think I did, but you should have received it directly.
So this is also an overlap with
now coming to your
Naviance?
inbox. Tell me again.
Is this also an overlap with software like Naviance?
I don't think it has anything to do with Naviance.
But is it doing?
Literally something new.
Okay.
It's a pilot.
Okay. Got it. Thanks.
Camille, I'd like to just point out that it's 8:56. I'm sure we
So
only
sorry.
have a contract, permit to be here until 9:30. I propose that we move on. in
Let me
the
blow through the
agenda.
President's report quickly. Most of it has already been covered. In the President's report, well, for one, I wanted to thank Principal Della Ragione for offering this space to us. She had been here earlier, but I believe she has left now. So thank you, families and administrator of PS 230. We heard from Nicole Job earlier about the CEC election. So please, if you do not have a NICSA account, contact your parent coordinator ASAP. You might have a NICSA account, and then when you go there, you see that only one of your children is listed. That is a problem. That's not the way it's supposed to be. All of your children should be listed. So please make sure, because the voting happens per child. So if you only have one child showing and you have 2, you're only going to get 1 vote when you should have 2. So let me just say this, as our current term is coming to a close, I want to thank everyone in our community for the enormous efforts that have been made to ensure equity in all of our schools. District 15 will continue to lead this work in New York City, and I'm proud to be a part of it, as I'm sure you all are too. And so thank you and keep up the good work. I'm looking forward to meeting our new CEC and helping with transitioning a new team of parent leaders. So I was at the President's Council meeting last night, and I know a few of them are here on this call. And so I thank you so much. Thank you for all of the work that you do to support every child in our district every day and to create welcoming environments in all of our schools. So we appreciate you and your partnership. We also want to share our appreciation and gratitude with our school staff, principals, and teachers. Next week is Staff Appreciation Week. It was always one of my favorite weeks of the year, having big parties in the school and lunch, making lasagnas for our teachers. So please enjoy all of that. And I had met with Chancellor Banks prior to the break, and I was talking to him about school-wide enrichment model and how we want to see that expanded in our district. And so he said, invite me. I want to see the work that you're doing. So we're trying to have him come to the Brooklyn New School, and he'll be able to see project-based learning and school-wide enrichment models happening in real time. And our children will be able to talk to him about that. Superintendent Alvarez talked about the middle school offers that came out today. If you're having any trouble with that whatsoever, please reach out to your guidance counselor at your school. And it's very important, there's a community meeting happening in Sunset Park this Thursday at 6:30 in person at PS 503, which is not a District 15 school, it's a District 20 school at 330 59th Street. There's going to be a public workshop on the 3rd Avenue transportation study. So 3rd Avenue is one of the most dangerous corridors in Brooklyn, with the most number of children killed, most number of people killed and injured, according to the New York City Department of Transportation data. So residents know this personally from the community members who have died or been injured along the corridor. The cars and truck traffic along the BQE and 3rd Avenue also contribute to the pollution, asthma, lung respiratory, and cancer rates that are so high in Sunset Park. So please, if you can, join this important meeting focused on collecting input from neighbors and local businesses to improve 3rd Avenue. And I'll ask if somebody could drop that information in the chat so that you have it. If you're not able to attend the meeting and you want to submit information, there is a web link that's on the DOT's website. There's an online survey that you can complete. Thank you, Antonia, for dropping that in the chat. There might be a flyer, but we do not have it. So this information we received from CB7, the Community Board 7. So it might be on their website if there is a flyer. Thank you for asking for that in the chat. So I alluded to this earlier. There's a lot happening in Albany right now about the state budget. We are getting word that a budget deal may be finalized soon that would include allowing 22 more zombie charter schools above the New York City cap. For those of you who do not know what a zombie charter is, they are either a failed charter school or a charter school that did not open once the cap was closed. Oh, you know what? Can you take that period out of the link? Sorry about that. It's because there's a period in there.
Oh.
Okay, so 22 charters come in and they start out as a single school and they can grow up to 3 times their scale. So if these 22 schools come in and they're calling themselves elementary schools, they can very easily then ask for an expansion to a middle school, an expansion to a high school. So 22 charters equals 66 schools. And we may as well just look at it like that because that is what inevitably happens. Allowing more charter schools to open when New York City is seeing declining enrollment loss is irresponsible and could divert another $1 billion or more from our public school budgets. In addition to taking space that we need to lower class size. In the last 5 years, 72% of the increases in state foundation aid to our schools was spent on charter school expansion. So statewide, the figure is 61%. Please, please, please call your legislators when you get off this call. Tell them no more charter schools, zombies or otherwise. You can find your assembly member's phone number and your state senator's phone number on the state sites. Antonia will drop it in the chat. Thank you. And you can email them or call their offices on the phone right now. They're not going to answer. You just leave them a message saying no more charter schools. So thank you so much for your advocacy. If these charter schools do open, they're being negotiated to open in private space. So our district schools will not have to worry about co-locations. And we have a co-location resolution that we are going to be reviewing in moments, that we can drop in the chat as well. One final announcement. There is going to be a state Senate education hearing hosted by Senator Shelley Mayer to review suspension policies in relation to a newly proposed law. That is going to be on Friday, May 12th at 10 a.m. We'll send information out to the public. I only just received this information during the meeting. So please, if you're unable to attend the meeting and you have things that you would like to say in relation to this new proposed law, you can submit public comments in writing to an email address that we will share via email. So again, I thank you so much for staying so late. We are now at 9:05, and I'm going to ask if we could just drop that resolution on co-locations in the chat. We do not have time to review it tonight, but please read it and send your comments to the CEC at cec15@schools.nyc.gov. We have a draft resolution on physical fitness and wellness that we have been discussing, and we are going to bump that to our next meeting. So we're going to try to get some presenters to come and speak to some of the issues in that resolution. I'm going to turn the floor over to a representative from Congressman Dan Goldman's office, and then we are going to close out the meeting.
Hi, everyone. How are you guys? I'm just here to remind everyone that we do have a congressional art competition going on. It is open to all high school students. The deadline is on May 1st, so as long as you go to school in the district or you're also a resident in the district, you're able to apply. It doesn't have any restrictions on what sort of topic. As long as you submit something in for your art, and we'll have a final person on May 1st, after May 1st. So thank you.
Thank you so much, and really appreciate you coming here in person. So Antonia is going to just speak aloud an amendment that we are proposing to our own bylaws. And while she's doing that, if there is anybody still on the call that would like to speak during the general public comment period, I would ask that you raise your hand so that we're just prepared to call on you right away. And I will pass it over to Antonia.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen. Okay, all right. I think everyone can hear me. Our bylaws need some amending. The superintendent proposed an amendment to the order of our meetings so that he could present before other agencies present to us. And it also came to our attention that because of changes to the law last year, the number of members and the quorum needs to be updated for the start of the new term. And if they don't have adequate bylaws in place, they are not going the new council will not be able to elect their officers right off the bat in July and start their business. They will be a bit hamstrung until they can get their new bylaws. So we thought it would be nice and responsible of us to leave them with functioning bylaws. So the proposed changes, you can see on the document. I will scroll through them. There will now be 7, a quorum will now be 7, not 6, because we added the D75 member, so there are now 12 voting members on the body, and the majority is 7, not 6. So everywhere that it says 6 council members needs to be changed to 7. And I've gone through and you can see my little red 7 and my crossed out 6. And I will keep scrolling. And there you'll see another 7. And then we get to, on page 11, the proposed change to order, which would be as soon as we vote these bylaws in to effect. So the program, number 3 used to be program presentation. We're changing that to report of superintendent. And number 5 used to say report of superintendent, and now it will say program presentation. And then I continue on with changing 6 to 7. Then here there's a reference to 11 voting members. We have to change that to 12. And more references to 7 members of the council. 7 members of the council. And that is it. Those are all of the changes to the bylaws. That includes the student member, right? No, the student member is not a voting member. And there will be 2 student members on the new council.
Right, non-voting.
They are non-voting members, so they are not part of the quorum of the council. So they,
From what I understand, they're non-voting because they are not of legal age and we are voting on zoning, so that's that, but we have a vacancy for a student member right now in this moment.
Right.
So if
haven't
there
had-
are any students, seniors preferably is the way the law is written. Juniors are totally acceptable by our council and any other student who would like to come and be a part of CEC 15. We encourage you to reach out, come. We will put your voice above ours. Absolutely. So,
yeah, so guys, please, all members, look at the bylaws amendment, the law that is linked so that you can look at that change to the law. If you have questions about it.
The whole council is gonna be 14.
The whole council is going to be 14, 2 of whom are non-voting high school members, 12 voting members, inclusive of a new D75 representative. And I will stop sharing my screen now. Thank you, Camille.
thank you so much, Antonia.
I will, I'm gonna put you back on and mute myself.
Okay, great. So I will move to general public comment. Does anybody have anything that they would like to share with CEC 15? I want to acknowledge that we have a member of the PEP in our space, Tazeen Azad. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all of your service representing Brooklyn. So I don't see any hands up for public comment. I would just ask our interpretation team. If they have anyone on the call that would like to share public comment. And I'll say that
No comment
I
in the
saw
front
that Mia Perez from CM Hanif's office dropped something in the chat about the Third Avenue Street Safety Event DOT is hosting. She will be present for Councilmember Hanif's office. They are hosting with the Department of Transportation. And she dropped the link in the chat for the 9th Street visioning. Interpretation?
Hello.
No.
This is the Mandarin line, and there is no comment from the public.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
There's no comment in Spanish line.
Thank you so much.
There is no comment or suggestion from Bangla line.
Okay, thank you. I just want to acknowledge that Nancy Randall is here also on the call. She couldn't be with us in person. Nancy, thank you for being here. Do you have anything you want to talk about?
Thank you, Camille. Sorry, all of a sudden my Zoom wasn't working. Yes, on Monday, if anyone is able to join on Monday, the CEC is hosting with the PS 58 Equity Committee a conversation with the creators of the School Colors podcast. I will drop the link in the chat to the podcast, and I will also drop a link in the chat to the flyer with information about it. And it will be Monday, next Monday, May 1st, at the PS 58 PTA auditorium. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for putting that together. It's going to be a fantastic event. So I hope a lot of people will be able to attend. Oh, the time, Nancy.
It'll be at 6:30 p.m. I just dropped the flyer in the chat, and I'll also put the information in the chat.
PS 58, 6:30. Great. Okay, great. So then it is 9:16, and if there are no other comments, I will just ask to adjourn the meeting. 9:16.
Okay.
All right, so then we're going to say goodbye for now. Just save the date for May 1st at 6:30 PS 58 Diversity in Our Schools event with the creators of School Colors. May 9th is going to be our May business meeting at 131 Livingston, the district office, room 301. We will also be offering Zoom. And May 24th is our first annual project-based learning student showcase at the Brooklyn Army Terminal, 5 to 6 p.m. May 30th will be our May calendar meeting at PS 94 in Sunset Park, also hybrid. And then our final meeting of the year, June 13th, is going to be a combined business and calendar meeting at PS 32 for 20 Union Street. So please do try to attend, and we'll look forward to seeing all of you soon. All right, take care, everyone. Have a good night.